Okay, welcome to the Magic Treehouse, Leprechaun in late winter. And today we are on chapter 9, Skunks or Weasels. So if you have this book, you can follow along with me as I read, and if you don't, just use your listening ears. But again, in both cases, you should be visualizing what's going on, right? Listening to the descriptive words that the author chooses to create pictures in your head, and then movies, right? It's going on. Think about the characters. Think about their character traits, think about what they're doing, think about the events, and make connections to the story as you go along, either to your personal life or to books you've read in the past. And, good readers always are making predictions, thinking about what they think is going to happen based on the details so far, and having I wonders. So, skunks or weasels, we could be having I wonders. I wonder what that means, right? We could make predictions thinking about, Willie did say that he wasn't going to go any further because he didn't want to be turned into a weasel. So I hope no one gets turned into a skunk or a weasel. But let's see, right? They are at the hill and they found Augusta. They see her and they saw the king and the queen sitting there watching the dancers. So let's carry on to chapter 9. We're on page 84. Okay, so only a couple more chapters left too. Augusta, whispered Jack. She's so tiny. They must have shrunk her, whispered Annie. Hide, whispered Jack. He crawled away from the door. Annie crawled after him. They pressed their backs against the grassy mound. Why are we hiding? Asked Annie. We can't let them see us, said Jack. They may shrink us too. But how are we going to save Augusta? Asked Annie. I don't know, said Jack. Hey, I just remembered something, said Annie. Didn't Mary say the girl in her story would have become small if she'd gone inside the hollow hill? Yeah, she did, said Jack. So maybe that means you can only get shrunk if you go inside. Right, said Annie. So let's go back to the doorway and call from outside. We'll be simple, direct, honest, and very polite, like Willie said. We'll tell the king and queen we've come to take our friend back to her family. But wait a minute, said Jack. How can she go back to normal with her family if she's only 8 inches tall? Good point, said Annie. This is so weird, said Jack. All right, let's worry about her size later, said Annie. For now, we just have to help her escape. Right, said Jack. Let's try it. So I wonder if this is a good idea. You might make some predictions about. Would you do the same thing? Would you have a different idea? Jack and Annie crawled back to the entrance of the hollow hill and peeked inside. In the pale green light, a very small Augusta stood watching the dancers. Excuse us, please, Annie called. The drumming stopped. The dancers froze. All eyes turned to Jack and Annie. The High King and High Queen looked startled. Who are you? The king called. How did you find us? That's not important, said Annie. We're very sorry to bother you, but we come to get our very dear friend Augusta. We have to take her back to her very loving family. Please, thank you, added Jack, trying to sound polite. Before the king or queen could speak, Augusta rushed forward. No, I don't want to go home, she screamed in a high little voice. I don't want to leave the Shee. Woo, said Jack. That was a surprise. Maybe Augusta was under a spell. Leave here at once, the High King commanded Jack and Annie in a squeaky voice. You were not invited. You have no business here. Yes, we are leaving right away, but Augusta has to come with us, Annie called. Thank you. She's right, said Jack. Augusta has to come with us, please. Thank you. No, I want to stay here, said Augusta. I'm not good for anything at home. Mary was right. I'm not happy there. Jack was amazed. Augusta wasn't under a spell. She really wanted to stay with the Shee. The girl will stay with us, the High King shouted. Now, go, now. No way, Jack blurted out. Uh-oh, that could be a problem. We won't leave without Augusta. I don't know if that's so polite. The crowd gasped. What? roared the king. Sorry, said Jack. I meant, you will pay for this rudeness, the king yelled. Uh-oh. So, I think there's a lot of I wonders going on right now. And a lot of predictions. Before Jack and Annie could get away, the king thrust out his arm. Sparks flew from the tips of his tiny fingers. Suddenly, Jack and Annie couldn't move their arms. The king kept pointing at them. "Skunks!" shouted out the crowd. "Or weasels!" Oh boy. Let's see. There's a question. Would you rather be a skunk or a weasel if the Shee were going to get you? "Neither, please. Thank you," shouted Jack. Jack makes me laugh because he's funny. He's trying to be polite. He was glad that he could still talk. But the crowd began chanting in strange, high voices, "Skunks! Skunks! Skunks!" The king nodded and raised both arms into the air. Jack was desperate. He did not want to live the rest of his life as a skunk. "Wait, please," Jack shouted. "I'm sorry. I was rude. Before you change us, I really, really need you to tell Augusta some things. Thank you." The king looked at Jack for a long moment. Then he lowered his arms, and the crowd grew silent. "Thank you," said Jack. "Augusta, listen to me. You should go back home. You're good for lots of things back there. You're very kind, and Mary said you have a brave heart and a fine mind. Those are really good things to have." Tears rolled down Augusta's cheek. She shook her head. "Listen to me, please," Jack went on. "Mary says you're not happy, but some things do make you happy, Augusta. You said you feel close to nature. You said you love simple folk like Mary. And I know you love stories, too. Mary said you remembered every single story she told you. You used to tell them yourself, word for word. You have a great memory." "He's right, Augusta," yelled Annie. "Those are gifts. You need to give those gifts to the world." Augusta was still for a moment. Then she shook her head. "I want to stay," she said. "You have had your say," the High King shouted at Jack and Annie. "Now, prepare to become skunks." He raised his arms again. "Oh, no," thought Jack. "Wait! Finvara," said the High Queen. The High Queen stepped closer to Augusta. The Queen wore a silver cloak that glittered with diamonds. Pretty. She had jewels in her long red hair that shone like stars. Her high, clear voice rang like a bell. "I am Queen Ain of Shee," she said. "The boys said you love stories and that you remember every story you hear. Is this true?" Augusta nodded. "Then listen now to our story," said Queen Ain. All the Shee were very still, watching Augusta and their queen. "In the morning of time, out of a rosy sky and a windy light we came," said the queen. "We were tribes of supernatural people. Strong, fearless, and noble we were. 5 roads carried our armies through the wild, wooded lands of Ireland, and for eons we ruled the Irish world. But when the humans came, the wild woods gave way to villages and pastures. Our tribes hid in the hollow hills, in ruined forts, and under the sea. Over time, we made ourselves smaller and smaller so we could more easily hide from humans. Eventually, we became known as the Shee, and we were mocked as the wee folk of fairy. But, in truth, we are a tribe of the great Duan, and we live in enchanted places like this one, protected by what is left of our magic. Do you understand?" "I do, yes," said Augusta. "Our stories were passed down for centuries in the old language of Ireland. But as the old language was replaced with English, the stories began to fade away," the Queen said. Go home now with your friends, human child. Go back, for our sake. Seek out the old storytellers and ask them to tell you tales of my people. Learn the old language. Read the old manuscripts. Write our stories down and share them before they are lost completely. Share them with all the people of Ireland and all the world. Will you do that for us? Will you use your gifts to tell our stories to restore our dignity? Augusta's eyes shone. Yes, she said, yes, I will, yes. Good, then I will send you all swiftly home, said the queen. She beckoned to the small dancer, who stepped forward with the tiny silver shoes. Sip the honey nectar of the Shee, said the High Queen. She took the chalice and held it out to Augusta. Augusta took a sip. A second later, Jack felt cold wind and rain. He and Annie were standing on the bank of the river. Augusta was standing beside them. She was normal size again. So that is the end of chapter 9. So, well, they made it out without becoming skunks and weasels. Good thing. That was a bit scary and weren't sure what was going to happen there. They got lucky. So we have 2 chapters left, and now they have to deal with Willie again. So let's see what happens. I will see you soon. Keep reading.